Hey everyone, welcome back to the All Music Matters in That podcast. I'm your host, Brian. Today, I welcome some folks out of Kentucky there. We got Dan and we got Chuck from the band Hollows. How y'all doing today?
Hey, doing great.
That's good to hear. And which part of Kentucky are you guys hailing from?
I'm from Letcher County. And I'm from Anderson County.
Have you guys known each other for a good while?
Not very long, no. No. I started, Dan needed some drums back in October, I think it was. And I had been paying attention to Hollows before then. And once, his request for a drummer came about, I slowly started working toward that. So we've done that through the winter and the early spring here.
All right. I think Dan's got more of the story about how Hollows started, but get to that in a little bit here too. But first off, what you boys been up to recently? Got some shows coming up?
A lot of rehearsal. We have a lot of shows booked.
I actually did check out your one Facebook video. Frost Covered Eyes, I guess. Is that a new song in the works, or is that
actually the original, but we just kind of we're putting it into the set. Maybe.
He wants to keep you guessing. So, all right, sounds good. Get to talk about that too just a little bit. But first off, boys, welcome to my podcast right here. And the way it's going to work is just want to ask you guys some questions. Want to get to know you more both as the musicians, but also as the individuals as well here too. So, you both ready?
Yes.
All right. So I guess Dan was the one who started this too. So let's start with you, Dan. So first off, what role do you play in the band, and how'd you form Hollows?
Initially, it was a one-man black metal, me and my drum loop pedal, and then my drummer showed up out of nowhere, and so I was converted to me and a drummer, and then I lost that, and then Chuck came. It was a pretty quick year. I went from a one-man project to a drummer playing shows to absolutely nothing. Actually, my studio burned too, but I wouldn't even get into that. But that's part of the story. Yeah, I lost everything, and had a good group of guys that got together and got me some equipment. So I started, right back at it. Started looking for a drummer, and actually he'd reached out beforehand, but I didn't realize in the way he worded it what he was saying. So he reached out a month beforehand, so we could have been at this a lot earlier, but I didn't realize what he was saying. Yeah, I'll come play. And I work, which he's 3.5 hours away, which I work 3 hours that way, so it works out for us most of the time.
All right. I guess what's your story? I guess how'd you become a musician?
I've always been into metal since I was a kid, and I played guitar, Metallica and stuff and all that, but I had a friend I met on a Metal Amino app years ago from Turkey that got me into black metal, and a lot of life disappointment and pain, and it rang true, and there's a lot of misery and sorrow in this part of the country that just stories need to be told,
Gotta let out the inner darkness, as they would say. So, and I guess, Chuck, what's your story?
Oh, goodness. I started playing drums around 8 years old and have been in various bands, usually original type music. Did a little tribute work there for a while as a day job. And pretty much have been playing hard rock, metal, jazzy stuff most of my life. And when I heard the tracks that Hollows had produced, I was immediately drawn to it. And it's the first time that I've really been with anybody who actually was indulging enough to play extreme metal. I've always wanted to, but honestly, finding anyone that did it in a way such as Hollows is doing was actually a lot harder to find than I imagined it would be. And so I'm having a great time with this music and this project. you know, that pretty much is my story. I've just been following the fun. And in recent years, I've had a little bit of fun, but I've also had a little bit of been in with some folks that couldn't have a lot of fun with it. And so far, we're having a great time every time we get together. So, I'm having here in my later years, I'm kind of taking it a little easier route.
That's a more heavier route, I guess we should say, because you go from more of the jazz
Most
and rock.
certainly, yes. Well, I've been in harder bands, some punk bands, but even those, not really into the extreme metal aspects of things. And especially being just two of us right now, we're making quite a noise for two people. So, there's room for me to explore. And he's starting to explore as we're getting into things. I feel some new music coming in the near future when we get a chance, because we keep adding dates every few minutes, don't we?
Yeah.
Which is not a bad problem to have, honestly.
No, gotta keep yourselves busy too. Gotta get the name out there. So, and actually, not too long ago, I interviewed another metal band out of Kentucky as well. Do you know the band Kjarn?
Oh yeah,
For sure.
yeah,
For
buddies.
sure. Yeah. That's some good stuff right there. And I actually checked some of it. Yes, I watched that. Yeah. Very, very nicely done.
No worries. They were funny guys, but we were going to try to turn the one guy, Mike, into a preacher before the interview was done. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's trying. I believe he's trying.
he's working that way. Next thing you know, he'll be baptizing people in the river. We call it the River Karn. That's what we call it next. So,
That's what he will be known as from this point on.
yep. Actually, you guys playing a show with them somewhere in the future, or you just know them personally?
Holler Doom. I played with them last year about this time with the first drummer, and then we played Mountains of Metal last October with them, and then we're going to play Holler of Doom with them in July.
Yep. So it'll be my first time actually playing with them, I would guess. Yes. Yep.
I like them. Interesting guys. So,
No.
and, I guess what's this holler black metal? I guess because anytime I think of the word holler first, I'm thinking like more maybe that holy roller you probably heard with like Spirit Box, for instance. That seems to be where it came from. But I guess why holler black metal?
Down here, that's what we call it, like hollows. If I was to say that here, I would say hollers, But hollows is how you have to write it for people to understand what the word is. So it became hollows, but it's really hollers.
Otherwise, they'll think you're shouting at them all the time.
Yeah.
Which, hollering across the holler is where, when I was young, here running through the woods and the mountains, that's what I was told, across the holler. And if you can holler across it, that's how you communicate.
So it's a slang thing. Is that how it goes?
Oh yeah, man.
It's an Appalachian mountain kind of thing. Yeah.
He has a dictionary, so when I show up, he knows what I'm talking about.
So I guess that explains how the name came about with hollows, or what was the story behind it there?
Just being here, if you know where I live right here, there's hollows on every which way here. And I don't know, that came to me just being out in the woods walking.
Each one full of a dark story somewhere. And he articulates those very well.
Actually, I was going to say like a transcendental experience, but I guess that's meant to be more lighthearted, I guess. So
he has the term, he described his music to me early on as happy black metal. And I was like, all right, yeah, I can roll with that, So a little doom with a smile, if you wish.
that's more like a death heaven, right?
No, I'm not gonna say we sound like them at all, but
Yeah.
I mean, we got some ambient parts, I guess.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not knocking any comparison to anybody if it sounds like them,
I would say
our influences are so
Wow. Yeah, all over the place. Yeah. As I say, you know, I was everything from Southern rock to Venom and everything in between. You know, pretty much covers me. I'm open to try any music. Usually don't fit into most of it, but I'm willing to try.
my dad got in the car when I was little, and he had two cassettes, and one was Quiet Riot Mental Health, and the other was Alabama, The Closer You Get, and that was the beginning of music for me.
That covers a lot of us around this area. You know, we've been affected by everything from bluegrass to country to metal. What, you know, usually whatever you're in the mood to hear is what we listen to. So there you go.
Kind of a central hub in a sort of way. But I guess Nashville's right below you guys too, so you got Music Center.
I'm a
Just wanna be-
little closer to me than Dan. But yeah,
Yeah, I'm closer to Virginia.
yeah, and the Virginia area that he's in has a wonderful array of heavy, dark metal bands. Man, I mean, it's the more I find out about this area, the more I listen to so many of these different bands that I haven't heard yet. And yeah, you know, just some good hard heavy metal coming out of the Appalachian, Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky area here. I don't know. It's more involved than a lot of other regions that I know of right now, even around Louisville, Lexington, the Nashville area. You know, there's like a little triangulation there between those two major cities. Cincinnati's not very far from us, Knoxville. So, you know, we have a decent area of influence, I guess you would say, from all of these major bands that filters through everybody quite well around here. You know, for there to be so many different bands, very few of them sound anything alike.
That's true.
But they're doing the same basic formula. But it's a treat how different everybody goes out of their way to sound.
That's good to hear. Actually, I do have a question about the music scene in and around, I guess, states that you all mentioned right there too. But we'll tie that in with COVID in just a sec. But I guess, Dan, what was more of the story about Hollows? Because it sounds like it's been a while. It's been around for a good while. So I guess what's more of the history about it so the audience can know about you?
It was a couple years probably before I started actually getting a drummer. But I attended local shows, and I've always supported the scene. I actually knew him by face from umpteen shows we attended, just never had met. So I just knew everybody. So when I put a band together, you know, people threw me a bone, and we took off, got show, you know, until we couldn't play anymore.
I was going to say, did your parents kind of support you to take up a guitar when you were young, or did you just happen to pick it up one day and rest is history?
Yeah, no, they bought it. They bought me one when I wanted one in high school. They were like, "You can play bass. You can be in this band." And I was like, "Okay, I want a bass," and they bought me one. So now they're like super supportive. They love it now, you know.
Hello, Danny boy.
My parents ended up getting me drums because I was beating the daylights out of every pot and pan table. My grandparents, of all people, back when I was young, was tied up between two things: the Lawrence Welk Show and Hee Haw. So I had big band drummers and country drummers, and honestly, a lot of that pretty much took over on me. And the mom got tired of me denting the pots and pans and bought me a drum set. And didn't take long for where I destroyed that. And a few months later for Christmas, we upgraded to a double bass kit. And haven't really been the same since. It kind of set a lot in motion.
I'll say you're like the Tasmanian devil that just destroys things like a little cyclone style.
I'm getting older now, so I'm a little more Daffy Duck, Bugs Bunny probably than that. But generally speaking, yeah, I'll try.
You know, as soon as you heard Daffy Duck, so.
Yeah.
I just said Daffy Duck. I was going to think of you're despicable. That whole deal. So,
Yep.
That's after about when that's what he says when I want to add bars to some of the parts to keep extended to build the vibe with the crowd.
That's enough.
No, he said that's enough.
Oh man.
I mean, hey, Chuck's up there in his years, but he's still kicking ass. So, good job, Chucky.
Giving it a try each time.
No, ain't no spring chicken here either, buddy.
He's he's trying to be old like me, but he's getting there. He got a few more minutes to wait.
Actually, I think it's more the gray that Chuck's having right there too. So, not sure how about the gray is for you there, Dan, but he's working there.
Oh, yep.
I hide mine behind the shave.
Yeah, okay. So they got rid of it. All right, but so we're going to jump into COVID right here too. So, so how bad was COVID for you guys personally, family wise, and then also music wise? I'm not sure what Hollis was doing then.
Probably totally different for us because as I can tell you now, after coming here, it didn't affect me at all, other than just going to the store to get things here and there because I live around nobody for a mile. So I didn't have to worry about things. Work was tough. The music absolutely died because before that you could go to a show any day of the week almost in Lexington or Louisville. And then there's no week shows anymore. It never did come back to the week shows. A lot of good venues closed. A lot of good concerts were canceled. And it's just, the bands that were doing it before are doing it now too, but I think they're hitting it harder because they appreciate it more now. Because I think a lot of the shows are more well thought out, and as they were spaced out before, they're just popping every weekend now.
Well, for me, in a lot of ways, it didn't affect me greatly because I do a lot of work from home. So I was already there doing what I always do. I was actually in a band at that point in time. And we did various of the streams. They started doing a lot of streams. And there was one particular place that everybody was playing in Lexington called Cosmic Charlie's. And they kept a weekly stream or two, full concerts. They would stream out live. And they carried on through pretty much all of COVID. And I played two of those. Soon after, though, we lost Cosmic Charlie's out of Lexington. And as Dan mentioned, there was quite a few venues that went down. That just never could recover. They just couldn't recover. Especially the ones that music was the general draw for the venue itself. A lot of the restaurants, a lot of the kind of hybrid bars, various other things did all right. They were able to pivot and change things. But the music-driven venues, we lost quite a number. Quite a really good people, too. A lot of good people were affected in that way.
Luckily, it didn't. It hit, and the way they set it up, it missed kind of affecting Mountains of Metal and Holler of Doom. So those festivals, they're local where we're at, and they just local bands play there. And gives people time to shine. He brings in some out-of-state talent, but it didn't affect those, and those kept going. So I think if it had been for those two festivals, I believe things might have changed because it let a lot of people didn't get to play.
Yep. That is very true.
Mm.
And that's one of the things about those festivals that is endeared to many of us metalheads because they do support the scene well beyond their dates. They support bands that don't play it. They support bands that do play it. If you're in the metal scene, everybody related to both of those festivals, day in and day out through the week, all year, they're constantly talking up metal, constantly talking up local stuff, constantly trying to bring in great regional stuff. So, while things were rough through COVID, it never really was insurmountable in a lot of ways for the greater area, I guess you would say. We did take some losses in it, but overall, people hung together and honestly came back more pissed off and stronger than ever. There was that. if anything, it fueled the energy in the music for sure. Once people were able to actually get in front of other humans again doing it.
Everybody's post-COVID albums killer.
Oh yes, that is true.
They wake up from their dormant slumber. If we want to maybe go into the black metal terms.
Yep. There was some seething and waiting and simmering until it could boil over, and that certainly has, and meant for many of them.
Seething with disdain. So yeah.
Yes.
All right. But in all seriousness, were you and your families okay? Did you guys get real sick with COVID?
Yeah, I mean, I had it probably 5 times. I'm a healthcare worker, so I got it 6 months probably after it hit, and various times after that. It got me down a couple of times, but nothing. I mean, I'll come back, I guess.
Everybody around me did all right. Lost a few friends, lost a few family members, but with the core family, everybody did okay. All of us had it at least once. Came through it okay. And so, yeah, just in some ways, the luck of the draw, because, like I said, some of the people that we lost were healthy and had no other issues until it hit. Others were a little more elderly and already had issues, and it just was, something that just couldn't make through. But overall, it could have been a lot worse, I'm pretty sure.
Could have been a zombie apocalypse, as they always been saying in the shows and movies. So, all right. But nonetheless, sorry for any losses you guys had along the way. So, but good to see you guys pull through, and good to have you along here for the ride. So I know you mentioned earlier about the music scene, the little triangle pattern you're talking about with Tennessee, Kentucky, and parts of Virginia there too. So first off, I guess, have some of these festivals, like what you said with Mountains of Metal and the other one you mentioned earlier too, I guess, have they been going on for a while, or are these relatively new?
Mountains is on its 7th year, 8th maybe, and Holler maybe the 5th.
Yeah. Holler Doom 5, and yeah, my gosh, it is.
Mountains of Metal 9.
Oh, it might be.
Yeah, 9 for one and 5 for the other.
Yeah.
I mean,
almost a decade for Mountains, isn't
it? Yeah. Right at it.
Yeah.
I mean, the Mountains really grow. Holler.
Oh yes.
I think they really fed off one another the last few years, and they're both are really, because they're in the same venue and stuff. And Mike from Kjarn runs Mountains of Metal, and it's fun. I mean, you get to camp, play music, hang out with other musicians doing the same thing. Food vendors. I mean,
the campfire, if you can burn.
Yeah.
Unless there's a burn restriction.
Yeah, as long as there's no burn restriction, you have a campfire.
Yep. It's not a bad place to be.
That's good. But I guess if they open up any new venues, I know you say you lost some recently, or because of COVID and related. So have they brought in any new bars or venues to help with the scene? Not
really in Lexington in Louisville. There's one in Louisville. I guess Portal was fairly new. There's one in Louisville that's been in more recent years. But generally speaking, I haven't seen a big increase or addition of new venues. What I've seen is the venues that we had been using before doing things a little more efficiently is the best way to put it. And some of the things that was going on through COVID, they've kept in place because they found out that things worked. So while there hasn't been in the Louisville, there's probably some and more in Nashville, I would say, that has gained a little more. But in our general Kentucky region here, not very much. Just the ones that survived are just doing it better is probably the best way to put it.
There's absolutely nothing here. There's some at City. We'll let you play every now and then. You just have to contact them, I guess. I've not done that, but
which is a really cool venue.
Yeah. Like this weekend, we're playing City Hall in Lowell. Next week, we're playing the Visitor Center in Big Stone Gap, Virginia. Actually, we're playing there twice in the next month or two.
It's kind of cool. As I mentioned, this will be the first city hall that I've ever played at. And I don't think Dan has ever played at one. Been in plenty of city halls for other reasons, but never have I ever played in an actual city hall in a little town in Kentucky. And if that's just not cool, I don't know what to, for a heavy metal band also. And it's not just us, three killer, just vicious heavy metal bands.
Yeah.
In this little city hall. And did you say we split the proceeds with the mayor?
Yeah. So,
how cool is that? How many cities do you know around the world that band and metal bands play in the little city hall and divvy things up with the mayor? That's a fantastically new one on me.
I think the mayor's going to be surprised by what.
I hope he's heard us before. I hope he's at least listened once.
He's going to find out later. If not, he's going to learn that day that you guys are holler black metal.
Well, he'll learn quickly.
No, we're headlining this one.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. If we make it, if they don't freak out and pull the plug.
I was going to say, was the mayor actually a metalhead too, or is he? I've always thought of political stuff or something.
I have no idea. Around here, like I said, it's just trying to get their own scene started. Not many places to play. So any place that let somebody set up their PA and let kids come in and charge admission so you can pay the bands for playing, people are trying to do it. And a lot of people do not want to open doors for such things. And you got to have music. It's what keeps out of trouble. You got kids playing guitar, they're not doing stuff,
Yeah.
You guys are part of the Bible Belt there too, so I'm just not curious if it's one of those evangelicals are pushing you away, be like, you all reject Satan, that sort of deal. So
we don't do religion or nothing. We write stories.
That's probably good. That's probably that's
another thing for me personally. One of the last projects I was in was in the heavy duty political material, which the way they did it, I appreciated it. It was done in a very rational and reasonable way. I was hooked up with one that kind of did a little punk stuff and about half covers, which was interesting. But when I started getting the lyrics, when I started listening to Hollows, I was like, oh, well, this isn't your everyday fare. There's no Dungeons and Dragons yet. There's no this. There's no that. It's dealing with coal miners in Kentucky. It's dealing with the blight of black lung with coal miners in Kentucky, which affected my grandfather, which affected my family in many ways. The area I live in Kentucky, out a little more central west, it's removed from the coal mine mentality, generally speaking. But where Dan is here, it's all around us. It's been a major industry and a way of life for people for decades and generations. And he uses his knowledge from family members and stuff to write these lyrics that they tell an amazing story, but they tell about who he's singing about. And for me, once again, the music is one thing and this and that. But when I got to these lyrics, I was like, wow, this is not your typical fare for any music. And honestly, a lot of bluegrass bands right here cover such things. And there's a few country artists that cover such things. But I don't really know of a metal band that's been in my mind that's ever really attached itself to the blight of the coal mine, or just coal mine industry, or just the life of it in the Appalachian way, as he has done. And like I said, it's just another thing that drew me to it. And I started nagging him like, "Hey, you still need a drummer? You still need a drummer?" And he's the first guy that's ever said they were coming to my place to jam that actually showed up. So
I can take you down the road, and in 10 miles, I don't think there's 20 old men. Everybody here up until probably my generation. I worked in the mines, but I didn't have to, and I got out of it. But before my generation, everybody worked in the mines and retired from the mines when they could, or when they got hurt usually. And you don't live very long. My dad's got black lung right now. He's doing all that crap, and it's not fun. And so these songs are double tap for me on everything.
So when you listen to the song "Die Black in Lungs," there it is. I mean, and that's a great, just good double bass song to play. But the lyrics, man, the lyrics hit harder than the music totally to me. And once again, that's a rarity in my mind. There's a lot of good lyricists out there in metal, and I've adored many through the years. But right now in this Kentucky region, it stands out because, like I said, I haven't heard anybody else even mention coal miners or Appalachia that's not in a derogatory way. Is probably the best way to put it. Because Hollows touches on some rough parts, but there's also parts in it, the honorableness and the just living. You got to live, and some people have had no other recourse than what's near them. But that's the same way, I'm sure, anywhere. Especially here in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Do you guys still have a pretty good coal industry there? Because it seemed like the way Kieran kind of described it, seemed like theirs kind of up and left slowly but surely. Maybe not like a day.
I'm in the mountains.
Yep.
Where I live, I saw on the news that said the coal production was going down, but it hasn't stopped here. I mean, there's coal trucks all day from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's hard to drive for them. The roads are terrible.
Oh, yeah. And see, that's the thing. I grew up admiring these guys driving these gargantuan trucks on these tiny little roads. And every time, I pass one, it's, it is, yeah, tunnel. I can imagine the tunnel vision that you have to have of just like, but yeah, they drive along like it's ain't nothing.
You had to be respectful of them. They're not trying to hit you, but they're trying to not go over the ditch either. So
yeah.
You got to work together.
Yeah.
That's for sure. But do you guys also have problems with like the pharmaceuticals, that sort of stuff, kind of abusing drugs, that sort of stuff? Is it a problem in your neck of the woods?
Meth is terrible. Actually, right here where I'm at, he can attest. There's nobody around here, and it's mostly older people. But as you get away from this community into the smaller towns and stuff, meth is everywhere.
It has, between the meth and the Oxycontin. When the Oxycontin hit, and they were giving, the doctors and everything were giving it out like chiclets. And I know that these huge pharmaceuticals got sued, and I know that they got a penalty of thousands or millions or whatever dollars. I have no idea where any of that went. I'm not sure anybody does either. I don't know if it helped the people that needed help. I don't know if it helped the people that they helped get in a terrible way. I don't think it helped anybody that they helped kill. So, yeah, the ones that are afflicted, there's help. There are ways. There is a support system, usually through their families, trying to do the best they can. But just once again, I personally lost people due to terribly bad choices. And I guess I'm lucky. I could have made them. I've had my fun. I've dabbled back in the day. I was a kid of the 70s. So, I lived through the 80s. It was in the 80s and had played heavy metal in the 80s. Okay, so I survived that. But I just as easily could have got under things that I couldn't have came out from under. But luckily, I didn't. I'm a stoner by heart when it comes right down to it. I'd rather do that than drink for the most part. Alcohol. I've seen more issues started from people drinking alcohol than I ever have from anybody smoking pot. If you're being an asshole high, you're an asshole anyway. But you can be the greatest person in the world and have 5 drinks and you're a mess. And you're somebody's problem. So yeah, there's more than just drugs around here that take people down. From when I was younger, it was all about the alcohol. There was so many alcoholics around me, including my dad, that, it was crazy how many were affected. Now that is a little more to the, the bad drug sort of thing. I don't know. I'm sure there's a few people that are still having very bad issues with alcohol, but you just not hear about it as much.
Here, it's like meth goes right along with everything going up and money not being what money was, because before you might have got by a month or two, you see people with backpacks all the time, and you never saw that before now, even with the Oxycontin and all the other stuff, which that killed the hell out of people I know. But
Oh, man.
But I don't know, meth does something different to you. It turns them into ghosts, which is a song called Ghost Creek you can listen to.
Yes. Wow. Wow.
On Bandcamp.
Man, he Dan got some lyrics that, like I say, he touches some harsh subjects, but in a good way.
When you about run them over on the way to work, like when I leave here, it's not so bad as of late, but when it first got here, there was always somebody in the road, so you always had to drive slow and it'd be foggy, and you just see somebody in a hoodie in the road, ghost on the creek. Around here, we call this the.
I'm sorry, say it again. The mic broke up there.
We call this the creek, like the road. If you refer to somebody, say they're up the creek or down the creek, so ghost on the creek just means on the road, I guess. But
Good
slang.
little slang, yeah. I can see why. So, all right. But I hope there's some way to help out down the road there too. But sorry for if you guys had to go through in your lives there, whether it be the alcohol, drugs, or anything like that.
You wouldn't get to music without it.
That's true. That's true.
Unfortunately. But let's hope at some point we could try to turn it around at some point, because we're still kicking ass out there. So, but the other thing too was I always thought it was funny. Did you ever see the TV show Justified with Timothy Olyphant?
I know what it is.
Vaguely, yeah. Yeah.
I live like 20 minutes from there, so I kind of I didn't take it serious, you know what I mean?
It was kind of like the Dukes of Hazzard back in the day. I actually had a teacher in school like, did anybody watch Dukes of Hazzard? Well, doesn't that offend you? And I was like, which parts? I know these people that live, I know people like them, especially the Daisy Duke ladies. There were plenty of Daisy Duke wearing folk around me. I was like, that looks familiar, yeah. But yeah, there's, that show, I don't know, I guess, I think I've watched it for a little bit there just to see. And I don't know.
I've yet to find many shows that paint a particularly good light, so I usually just don't even watch them.
Well, at least a realistic light.
Because we are not the whites from West Virginia, I promise you. But we are wild, though.
Touch, but yeah.
Just different.
We got the wild, passionate hearts, but we're not like them in West Virginia. So yeah. So, I just wasn't sure if it helped out the town in some sort of way, because it seems like if it's a hit TV series, it's almost like that town gets an influx of tourists because people want to come in and see what it's like.
Yep.
I think they came there and looked around, but it wasn't even filmed nowhere around there. Next of Kin with Patrick Swayze was filmed down the road from here.
Yeah.
The part where they showed the guy building the porch, that's what that guy got in compensation for letting him film. They built his porch. I mean, not a lot of love comes here,
I guess not. So it was worth a try, but it's still a great TV show nonetheless. So,
Yeah.
But how many songs have you released so far? Because I was trying to look for you on Spotify. I couldn't find you there.
I'm on Bandcamp. I'm not releasing anything on Spotify because most of it's just demos, and I don't think it's Spotify worthy. We're ever trying to get something down, but we change a lot of songs. We're trying to get to the way we want them. And I think we'll probably go with somebody serious to record when we get ready to record. But there is a Bandcamp page for Hollows, and it's got some demos and stuff on it. I'm going to say I probably got 12 or 15 songs on there, different EPs and singles. I think around there, because we're playing like 12, and I think there's 2 or 3 left that we ain't playing.
And see, that's another thing too. I was listening to the Bandcamp stuff and what various footages, small bits of footage that I could find. And one of the first things that it reminded me of and put me in the mind of was the thing is Johnny Ortega that used to be in Morbid Angel, the very early Morbid Angel. And after he left them, he did a project very much the same methodology that Dan did with Hollows, with a drum machine. And he played bass, he played guitar, he did a little bit of vocals on it, but he did it all himself. And he had a friend of his sing on it. And that Matricide Mother's Day cassette, it's still to this day worldwide. I finally noticed somebody had put it on YouTube. I found that was really cool. But listening to that cassette, that was probably, 1986, 87 maybe, when he did that, somewhere in that area. And at that point in time, there was a lot of extreme metal starting to come up. Slayer had already gotten established and so forth and so on. But it sounded, I guess now everybody's DIY, everybody's DIY. But this sound, it didn't have your major label production, but the music that he put together was just blistering. He went out his way to make it just hard and fast and vicious. And that's the way it came across. When I first started listening to Hollows on Bandcamp, and I was like, what is this reminding me of? And then he got to this, just fast as hell song, and I was like, man, this sounds like freaking Matricide to me, So for me, in a lot of ways, this is kind of, ever since that point, like I said, I've been wanting to be a part of something, but just never aligned. If I found something that had extreme vocals and this and that, they already had a drummer they loved, and he was perfect for me. So, I had nowhere to go. But this was really, for me, this all after all of these years, the first time that I've gotten in with anybody that has the extreme vocals, the extreme music, but has these lyrics that makes it, kind of transcends all that. So for me, I don't know. I'm a Hollows fan, is what happened to me. Mm-hmm. And literally, then I saw a post about needing a drummer for some shows. And I could not get it all together in time to do so. So I had to wait a few more months before I could actually get in the room with him. Had to court him a little bit. Had to work into it.
Well, there would never been a Hollows, because I was planning on learning to play drums, and then I learned of a band called Brood and Black. They're from Kentucky. And they were like, really, he used a Digitech pedal, I think, to do his drum beats on his songs. And he made he's on Bandcamp too. Those are some of the best, just rawest black metal you've ever heard. Just guitar and the drum machine, and I'm like, you know what, I can do this. Yep. And he was super influential for me to do that, because he done it by himself, did it with nobody, and I started that way. But I knew I always wanted a drummer because I wanted to play guitar and sing. I didn't want to play drums.
That's pretty cool. And earlier I mentioned about the song Frost Covered Eyes. I guess, what's that one about?
That was like the first one I ever wrote, actually. It's just been on the burner forever, because I wrote it deer hunting, walking through the woods. There's a little graveyard up here on the hill, and it snowed that day I was walking through there, just out of the way, and I noticed that it actually stuck to the grave, and you could read the names on it for the first time, because usually it's just, we're so old. And it was a little boy and a little girl, and did some research. They died during the Spanish flu, and as you look around where I live in these little graveyards, it's absolutely flooded with children from the Spanish flu. And I don't know why. In my mind, they're just laying there with their eyes open, and that's where Frost Covered Eyes comes from.
And see the maturity of that. I mean, once again, the lyrics, it's just the subject matter. Where did,
It alarmed me that all these, especially children and adults too, but there's just all these graveyards that are gone and nobody cares about no more, and they're just covered up, and people are forgotten. Because once you're gone if somebody don't remember you, buddy.
Yep.
Then again, it would be black metal without talking about something from a graveyard too. So
Yeah.
it's always something. So yeah.
Oh,
All right. Thank you.
okay.
So I can say what. But I guess Chuck, have you contributed any lyrics, or are you just letting Dan roll with the lyrics for any future?
No, I've never been particularly good at writing lyrics. I've actually did one song in my whole life that a band actually ended up doing, which, okay, it was about a vampire. And for as long as I remember, I've been watching black and white horror movies, Frankenstein, Dracula, etc., etc., and was watching Dracula one day, and it just popped into my head, and these lyrics started coming down. And all of a sudden, I'd written a song, and I just was like, look at this. Look what I did. And I had no reasonable consideration that they would actually go, we should do this as a song, which they did. And I was like, oh, well, there's no pressure there now. So I like it. Very few people else have heard it, but I still enjoy it. But no, I might be good for a little line here or two. I come up with more, kind of like the mentality that Dan writes with. I've always came up with more of a concept. You should write a song about this, or, from this guy's point of view, or et cetera, et cetera. Well, he has that built in. So, I don't even have to make suggestions on any of that, I don't think. It's just for me, it's so far, this is just a great time to play drums and just enjoy what he does. Once again, I easily became a fan. So sitting there actually now getting to be in the room with him and playing and listening to it all, I'm having a great time. So, yeah.
I'm continually writing, and we probably have 5 or 6 more songs that are not on Bandcamp that are mainly in the set list now that we need to get down, so they'll be on Bandcamp. I need to get Chuck on something so I can immortalize his time with the band. We're not going to be forever. We're getting older. I'll be 50 this year, so,
And I turned 61 last January.
Going strong, boys.
Yeah, you wait. You'll know when the double bass goes out and we just down pick all the time. You'll know that'll be our last record.
Actually, I thought that it would be like a metalcore or those deathcore sort of breakdowns in that case.
Well, we got some breakdowns if you get into some of our songs. I guess I don't know what you call them, actually.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of, there's a many breakdown vibey moments. Once again, though, he uses them.
I like epic sounding things.
He uses them in a way to where it's, I don't know, just a part of the song. A lot of people might say, well, let's add a breakdown section. He just writes the song that way and it ends up that way. Or he doesn't. I haven't really noticed him going out of his way to say, this should be a breakdown or this should be a that. It just comes out sounding as it does. So, yeah, that's kind of cool.
I've always considered breakdowns.
Well, I haven't really heard him chasing much in a lot of ways, It's just, once again, it's like, here's the songs and here's what they're about. And, he says he just learned to play enough guitar to do what he wanted to do. And for him, I think that he thinks it's a lot less, but it's not, sitting there listening to it, it's like, wow, man, wow, what a change. Wow, what a, it just kept coming up different. Instead of every song sounding like the same and rah, 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 there's up and down and this and that. And
purists aren't going to, black metal purists aren't probably going to dig it. Might not be their tea, but this is the songs I hear in me and the songs that come out of me, so I can't change them in any possible way because they wouldn't be the songs they are.
And in my mind, it's one thing I like about the whole vibe of it is there's a lack of an absoluteness. It absolutely has to sound this way, or it absolutely has to be this way, or he just did what he wrote and it turned out that way. So that's great to me. Just not chasing that whatever. That
we keep getting Dark Throne thrown at us. I'll take it. 100%. I'll take Dark Throne. I don't know if it's just because of 2 of us or just those driving simplistic, riffs we got. But I'm 100% fine with if that's what I sound like.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Being in a couple of punk bands, once again, they didn't do your stereotypical punk stuff. So for me, I always just thought it was rock and roll. Hard rock and roll, is it louder or whatever. They called it punk. I just, it's a good rock and roll band that kind of took on the establishment every now and then, which around here that's often needed to be done.
It's hard to, and you can listen to any band around here and try to pigeonhole them into one genre, and it would be hard because we have punk rock bands, metal bands, black metal bands, doom, stoner. We got a dude playing banjo.
Yeah.
I mean,
hell yeah.
all these festivals and all these different types of music. That's what, that's where all my writings and all of my noises come from. So I try to recreate the things I've heard,
My first show with Hollows, my first official show, was back here on Memorial Day. And who was it open? What was his name? The first guy that played was all by himself, a solo.
Robinson.
Yes. And, we were playing this black metal, and the one after us was a little more punky, but vicious freaking snare timing. Okay. Just ridiculous. Like speed metal snare timing without all the double bass. But the guy's fluid as water. Scuffed. Check into Scuffed out of Kentucky there. Man, they just released a cassette. Blistering. Loved it. But in front of all of that noise, this guy stood there with a guitar and kicked ass all by himself. Everybody in the room paying attention, clapping, having a good time with it. Perfect experience for the first live thing for me.
Actually, like you were saying, but Rapture,
wow.
They're a hardcore band.
Yeah.
We opened up. There was the guy playing acoustic.
Yeah.
Us, Scuffed, and then a hardcore band. So we played some wild shows.
That was 4 diverse things that all fit perfectly together in my mind.
It was the most intense crowd.
Yeah.
It wasn't the biggest crowd,
no.
but everybody was there to see who was playing. Everybody was watching and invested, and it was at White Rabbit Records actually in Corbin.
Yep.
That's a beautiful place. Man.
And that's everybody in the room wanted to be there, and you could tell, and they were paying attention and were appreciative. We didn't hear a bad word coming about it. Everybody was happy. That is one good thing about this area too, though. And I think COVID, that whole period may have affected this too. But the people that are focused on whichever music you're focused on, they will go out and support it in a lot of ways. We do have the benefit of a very good audience mentality in this region. That is one thing I can certainly say.
That's very good to hear. And actually, earlier I was going to say I consider a breakdown normally a part that tends to be repeated a good bit. So I don't know how it works in terms of guitar chords and all that stuff right there too. But it's a nice pattern you hear over and over again to a certain extent. That makes sense.
Check out on Bandcamp. You'll see that has the prime example.
All right, sounds good. A lot of people, maybe just some people, I should say, a couple of friends of mine said they were actually dumping Spotify because of the insidious nature they seem to be forming these days. But I guess what challenge?
Anything?
Actually, I was going to say, what challenges do you feel like you face these days as musicians outside of the obvious of being 3 hours apart?
We're still, technically we're building, so this is just our second and third shows, but we've had probably 10 shows, close to 10 shows now lined up. So
we've played 10, we've been in the room 10, 11, 12, 13 times now. Yeah. That's the thing about this is we usually get together once a week or not, depending on everyone's life. I had the benefit of, from when I first saw the request for a drummer and started to find out if I could get into it quick enough, which I just didn't have time to get it, I wouldn't have been able to go on stage and do a reasonable representation of it. I just didn't know what came next enough. But, for me, I was able to play along and play along and play along with headphones over and over and over and over and over for months. So that when he came in, I had songs that I could just go to and say, okay, I know this one better, I know this one better, I know this one better. So we were able to walk in and just start playing songs from the get-go. And I've literally been trying to get better every week since. It's just the whole mentality of it.
Yeah, he's been working on stuff I haven't played in a year or so I've had to go back and learn my own stuff.
Yeah. Which is kind of cool in its own right, yeah.
Well, I was going to ask Chuck, actually, how'd you learn the blast beat? Because I'm assuming you guys have some sort of blast beat in your songs.
Goodness gracious, just somewhere along the way. I guess I was doing all these things long before there was a term. Just little Chucky just trying to play faster and faster and faster and faster. Then I came up on, like the Police and Stuart Copeland. Just so many other things of these weird, odd signatures and speed. Because those early Police recordings and Stuart is a bit annoying how intricate he can be at the velocity he can carry it with. So Buddy Rich, Gene Krupa, all of these extremely, when they wanted to be fast players, just, trying to do that. And then somewhere along the way in the heavy metal world, a blast beat became titled, and I was like, oh, okay, you just mean like a fast, okay. It took me a while to understand a blast, what? And it's, you're just real fast. Like, okay, you could just say fast, but blast sounds good, I guess. So, I don't know. I guess I was doing it before there was a term for it, and just literally trying to play fast. Then Slayer came along, and it's like, can you play that fast? And I'm like, not yet, but we're working on it.
That's back when it was all heavy metal.
Yes, it was just heavy metal, And I swear, it seems to me like they started moshing. It was invented in Bogarts in Cincinnati, because we're at Death and Devastation one night, and everybody was pretty much still just slam dancing and pogoing like all the Cro-Mags and all the punk bands were. And then somehow, somewhere, it all started into a circle. I was like, well, this is wild. So I don't know if it directly started there that night, but it had to be right up in the first times that people went into a circle pit and beat the hell out of each other.
I'm sure there were others.
Also, the karate fighting that I see now, I don't know, man. We were violent and banging into each other, but we were not to just beat the daylights out of each other, unless we had to go to the parking lot a couple of times here and there. But yeah, I'm not going to knock anybody for how they rock, but some of it just seems to be a little bit like odd to me,
I would say I think there were like small venues maybe where it did start because of some of the bands that started getting louder, faster, maybe more down-tuned. That sort of deal. People started getting a little bit more violent. So yeah.
Yeah, when they started hitting the arenas, I guess when it got really exciting. Because Anthrax and Slayer and Halloween in Louisville Gardens, it's the biggest circle pit I've ever saw. It was literally from one side of the whole basketball floor court to the other. It was so big there was an island in the middle of it, okay? So it went from the small to quantumly so much larger quite quickly.
I'm just looking for a small one.
Yeah. A cup. If they start do-si-doing in the square dance, we'll be happy. As they're beating the hell out of each other, right?
I'd say at least at your age, because I don't think you want to go to work the next day with a bad black eye or bloody nose or something. So yeah.
I have banged into friends. I didn't even notice them on the floor. And 2 or 3 days later, it's like, man, you about killed me. It's like, when? You didn't see me. It's like, I might have felt you, but I don't remember seeing you. So all I saw was hair and bang. I was like, pardon me, sorry. Yeah, I've broke my nose, had to go on stage with a neck brace after crowd diving 2 nights before a show. I've made a couple of three or four hospital trips from mosh pit shenanigans.
Was that dad? Did you really sort of moshing anything like what Chuck was doing? Stage diving, that sort of stuff?
No, I'm old school. I like the circle. I like everybody run the circle and pick me up and fall down. Yeah, I like that kind of thing.
That's the good stuff.
Yeah, you don't. I'll be honest with you. I don't know the last show that I've seen a circle pit in. Probably Grave or Gate Creeper at Calls with Charlie's before
Maybe.
COVID.
Yeah.
Nah, I might have went to one mag bar in Louisville, Volcandra maybe. I can't remember. I think that's the downfall too. Playing the smaller things, you never really get that good. Which a lot of shows we play, it is face to face with the crowd. So if you can get them interacting with you, they really interact with you. You know. But it's really, you got to get them going.
Yeah, the blood pumping, that sort of deal. So
Yeah.
It's also
Probably
funny
not
because
following
I was gonna say, I think it's a little funny with like some of the bands that start saying like open this shit up and like go fucking nuts. That sort of deal when they're trying to kick off the show as well.
Now that's how kind of like Raptured was. I mean, they just dropped in and it was like boom.
Yeah.
Neck started snapping and people had broke backs.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, man, I hope we sounded half that good.
Sure, you did.
They did sound good.
So, yeah. But I guess, have you guys used anything in terms of AI or anything else to help with your music?
No.
I've experimented with AI, just doing random, graphics or whatever. Just experimenting. I will experiment with such things to see what all the hubbub is about. I try not to be derogatory or derile things that I haven't tried. But I don't know. It's pretty soulless, generally speaking. Okay.
I paid for my logo.
Yep.
I'll pay for our art. I'm not going to. They're artists just like us. I don't want nobody to shortchange me when it's my turn to make money.
And there is a huge contingent of metal artists and graphics all around us. Kentucky, that's one thing I can say, full of graphic artists around here. And I'm metalheads too. Properly, into metal, into the music, into the style. And there's just some really good people out there working on it. And once again, like I said, I tried the AI. I never came up with any results that was like anything near what I would want, to get from somebody else. So yeah, if it works for somebody, not going to knock somebody. However they make their art, That's cool.
Yeah, man. If you can't afford it, that's 100%. Because my logo was I think $75. It wasn't expensive or anything, but sometimes that's a lot of money depending on where you at and who you are. So I don't knock anybody. If you make your do what you want, just get your stuff out there. Somebody somewhere probably wants to hear it.
I mean, somebody will tell you suck.
Yeah, 3 or 4 are going to tell you suck before they tell you you're good.
What the hell you do?
You sound terrible when you talk. I can't wait to hear your comments.
That's what I was happy. That's the bots. So yeah.
Dude, I got a YouTube video, a YouTube channel. I used to do guitar videos. Where are you from? What do you do? I bet you can't. Just like, all right, I quit.
Oh man. Yeah, the bot situation out there on social media, man. That right there. I don't know what people are going to do. I don't know.
It's here, so
you're going to have to deal with it, but realizing it, you have to double check everything. It's just there's a lot of people that don't have very much else to do in their lives, I don't reckon, other than sit around and try to figure out how to make somebody feel bad. And either that or the constant acting like or commenting like whatever they do is the way to do it, and everybody else what you're doing is silly and just not worth it. And there's some pretty prominent musicians in this region who go out of their way to do that too often. Or if not enough people are at their shows, they'll come up and say, so everybody's just sitting at home and not out doing anything. It's like, or they could be watching any of the other 500 bands that might be playing tonight around here. So, there's a lot of people that try to guilt people or knock people down over not paying enough attention to them, which thankfully I got over a long time ago. I'll let people know where we're playing. If everybody don't show up that said they were going to, then they didn't show up. I'm no longer devastated and frowny faced and stressed about it. Whoever's there, I'm happy. So yeah, that's so much of that you can get drawn into on social media and bots and all this stuff and everybody else, the AI stuff. But you just have to be diligent and be aware. Let friends know when someone's doing things on their faces, their media that looks weird and so forth. And I have been have had the benefit of friends saying, "Hey, did you know this was on your stuff?" And it's like, no. So you go over and you got some hateful comments, or people want to say you suck and you're shit or whatever, but really the hatefulness and stuff, it's like, yeah, that's not leading us anywhere good anymore.
Technically, never really had, whenever you think about it. So
never, yeah.
Actually, I've had you guys on Facebook too. So can you tell the audience what social media you guys use?
Yeah, the Instagram is more what I use, and that's hollows.606, I think. And I'm trying to get more active on the Facebook page, but I've been posting to the Instagram nonstop through this whole thing. And there's a lot of videos, old and new, on there. And the Facebook at Hollows on Facebook, HOLLOWS. There's the one from England. Don't be fooled; they are better than us and have more fans.
We're just look for us under the less popular section.
I got tagged in so many of their posts for the last 2 years. It's been ridiculous. I bet they hate me.
We're the other hollow guys. So yeah,
The other dude.
the other dude out of the sticks in Kentucky. So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but boys, we made some questions here pretty good. So here, I got some extra fun ones for you guys. Ready?
Go.
All right. So I am curious if there's a particular Kentuckian dish I haven't heard about yet. But for the first one here, what would you say is currently your favorite food?
Peanut butter for me.
That's
an easy one.
I can't even deny it is. That's weird. But I bought the wrong kind the other day, and now it has to be honey roasted crunchy Peter Pan.
For us civilized folks, Jif, sugar free.
If you don't believe that, there's 3 laying over here I can show you right now. If you don't
There's how the split began. It was a peanut butter incident in 2025.
He has to bring his own when he comes.
Yes.
I thought there was like a salmonella. I thought there was like a salmonella poisoning. I thought that's why they would do like a peanut butter Peter Pan alert or something. I don't know. It was like, what? You got no love for the Jif? I mean, that was my shit back in the day with the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for kids.
I literally,
I could win either way until recently.
When I started my first 2 years of school, we lived less than a quarter of a mile from the Procter & Gamble plant where they make Jif still to this day. And smelling those peanuts roasting, you could not escape it. So I was marked as a child, and supposedly being as, weren't they the evil devil worshiping company back in the 80s or whatever it was supposed to have been? Made sense to me because they marked me as a child.
He was really jiffy. He just doesn't remember correctly.
Yep. So Jif peanut butter, it's like it has been ingrained in me since pretty much almost 60 years. Yeah, probably 55 at least, 58 somewhere in there.
Yeah, I can say why. But are both of you guys you love peanut butter? I wasn't sure there was anything else. I wasn't sure that was just Chuck.
No, I've in the last about month I really hit peanut butter hard. I don't know what's happened. I didn't realize he liked peanut butter.
I'm pretty sure that's the only thing that's kind of held me together all these years. Nice sticky peanut butter
with chocolate graham crackers.
Oh lordy, yes. Oh yes. Yeah.
This isn't going to be one of those situations. You're like,
anytime.
I was going to say, this isn't going to be one of those situations where you just like peanut butter anywhere, right?
Oh yes, yes, yep.
Oh boy, here we go. All right, a great choice there too. So for the next one right here, not sure how much you terms you get a TV down there, but what would you say is your favorite movie? And if you have a favorite TV series you'd like to share, go ahead.
Movies, Star Wars. I'm a Star Wars nerd. All the books, everything. I lost all my stuff in my studio buried. But TV show, I'm a Western guy, dude. I watch Have Gun Will Travel every day.
For me, the movie, I will stick with it. The Warriors, Gangs of New York. You probably know the Twisted Sister. You know, Twisted Sister, come out and play. Yay. Well, they got that from the movie The Warriors. With Warriors, come out and play. Clacking the bottles together. If you've never seen The Warriors, look it up. You must see The Warriors. It's important. 70 something, I think. 70 something, 80 something, early 80s. TV shows, very much like that. We have a station that I get that is old shows, lots of old shows. And I mostly have them. Everything with the Waltons, MASH, and the Grip Show, all the Westerns, Have Gun Will Travel, Rifleman, all of that. So usually if I'm home and there's nothing particularly other I'm interested in, I usually have that on watching one of those. So yeah, just something old, usually.
That's why I would talk about the Westerns, because my dad was real big into the outlaw Josie Wales.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, my dad was a huge Clint Eastwood fan.
You see, Clint Eastwood is on at least once a week. The old one, what was it? Wasn't Wanted. Maybe it was. But yeah, very, very, very young Clint Eastwood. One of his first things he ever did is on each day.
Rawhide.
Rawhide. That's exactly it. There.
Every morning at 9.
Yes. Yep. So yeah, you know, once again, you know, if we're hanging out in the motel room and big stars and everything, we're pretty compatible between peanut butter and Westerns. I think we'll be all right.
Hey, if the apocalypse were to happen the next day, I mean, we should look for you in a bunker.
There you
At least
go.
we can enjoy that. So, yeah.
Different jars, of course.
I'll bring the Jif, and then I'll bring the club crackers afterwards.
Oh yes, yes. Multi-grain, please. Yes. I fell in
guarantees.
love with multi-grain club for a reason.
Fair enough.
If I make
Actually,
chocolate, I will be no hope.
It'll be the right side of heaven, actually, to be honest, for Chuck that day. So, yeah. Actually, Dad, did you grow up liking more of the prequels that came out in the early 2000s for Star Wars?
Oh, I'm old, dude. I watched. I was born in the 70s. I watched Star Wars in 80. Right, they re-released the original movie right before Empire Strikes Back was released, and they took me to watch that for my birthday. I mean, it's on ever since then. I can remember walking up. I was doing it as I was telling you. I remember walking up to the marquee, and they let me go see what was on and stuff. And I come back, and I'm like, it's Star Wars, you know. And then after that, it's just been on ever since.
And I was one of the lucky children that was in Richmond, Kentucky at Campus Cinemas when it opened. And we went to the, what was it, 1 p.m. matinee or 1:20 p.m. matinee, and walked out of that one, got back in line, and went to the next viewing. So I saw when it debuted, the first two showings. That was in Richmond, Kentucky, when it came out, and it was as fun as everybody says it was. It changed everything. We had as a movie going people, we had not seen anything like that yet. And yeah, for me, there was before Star Wars, and then there was cinema after that, and you can tell it, from the way it was before. And the only closest thing, I guess, was Jaws and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So that being able to go to the premiere weekends of those was yeah. I look back on that with a lot of smiles.
I can imagine too. And actually, I think it was funny. It seemed that Empire Strikes Back, I guess, was a little mixed in the beginning there too, because I guess people weren't too sure what to make of it. And then it seemed like afterwards, like, oh wait, this movie's fucking great, and the whole plot twist and everything.
Well,
Yeah, the plot twist didn't come to years later.
They say, I'm your father. It's like, what? What?
I mean, but you got to remember those toys were new at that point.
Yeah.
So when you went to the store, there was really nothing new except for Star Wars. So you're like, what are these? These are awesome. They got swords, and then you saw the movie.
And I grew up with full-size G.I. Joes, and when I saw these Star Wars figures about this tall, I was like, what have they done? Why would you do this? Why would you not have a Luke Skywalker that's 12 inches tall?
They did.
It finally got there. Yeah, it took them a while, but they finally got there. And what were like they were ridiculously priced even back then.
Yeah, $20.
Yeah, and then you couldn't find them, and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Good times.
And I ended up
I grew up
working
those.
toy
And I just-
years later. I get. Have you found Nemo? It's like, really. This is what I get. Here's what I've got to put up with. Everybody asking, do you have Nemo? Do you have Nemo? Do you have Nemo? It's like, yeah, somewhere. We found him someplace.
In a dark corner of a place that we will not mention by name. So yeah.
Yes.
All right. But all great choices there. So not sure if you guys do any drink anymore, because I know Chuck, you mentioned earlier about seeing what alcoholism does. But if you guys do drink, what would you say is your favorite alcoholic drink? And what's your favorite non-alcoholic drink?
If I'm going to drink, it's some kind of tequila. I'm sure some kind of soda. Probably sun-kissed orange at the moment.
Usually at Coke Zero or an L81, which is a local Kentucky beverage, a soda that has finally being sold outside of Kentucky in more recent years. Very ginger ale-ish. And we used to mix that with Jim Beam, which is usually why if I do drink, I prefer Woodford Reserve. Or a wine. There's various wines that I can roll with. But it took me a long time to, like on the bottle of Jack Daniels, where it says if you keep reading, it says Tennessee sipping whiskey, which I found out of, it took me a while to learn, to read the directions, because guzzling whiskey has a very different effect. So it took me a while to read, sip it. Okay. So yeah, once I got past that, it's been a little more enjoyable. A whole lot less throwing up, let's put it that way.
Well, I imagine just doing the sips, maybe a nice little deal. I think it would make it more enjoyable.
With a shot of Woodford Reserve and just smell it for 5, 6, 7, 10 minutes before even taking a sip. Which is made real close to where I live. I can see one distiller for 4 Roses from my back porch, and the other side of town is Wild Turkey. So depending on which way the wind blows, kind of lets you know with what taste you're in the mood for. Woodford, thank goodness, is a few more miles away, so I really can't get a whiff of it mostly. That does help.
I mean, hey, I tried Jim Beam and I guess Heaven Hill. I don't know if they're just a particular brand or something.
Jim Beam ain't terrible.
It's terrible, dude.
A lot of people can't stand it. But there's 7-year and there's whatever year, and that lesser year has a bit of a tang to it for sure.
Yeah, there's better representations than those.
Yes, there are. Yeah,
they're also pricey too, though.
Yeah. Well, Woodford, that's another thing. Plus, just the way things work out, Woodford is much cheaper where I live than most other counties and states that you go to. And I was literally online talking to a friend from, I guess, Ukraine. And, he mentioned where I was at. And he's like, isn't that near Woodford County? And I was like, yeah. It's like, isn't that where they make Woodford Reserve? I'm like, yeah. I said, do you like Woodford Reserve? I was like, oh, yes, I do. He said, I would love it if it wasn't so expensive. Literally close to $100 over there in U.S. I was like, oh, my Lord. Because, I can get a big, old, huge bottle if I choose to for like $20-something. Just, a couple of free places right around me. So, good whiskey or bourbon being that cheap usually isn't a good thing, but, it works out now. I can keep a bottle for months.
I was gonna think the lesser term one was the Devil's Cut, or at least that's what I thought it was. I don't know. So
yeah, that's the which one does that? Is it Jim? No. Mm-hmm. I know which one it is too, and I've had it. There's a Devil's Cut. Oh my gosh, is it Jim Beam?
It is Jim Beam, yeah.
I think.
Yeah, it needs it.
Yeah. So that once again, Jim Beam makes a decent mixer, I guess. If you're gonna, I was an early adopter of Jaeger bombs. When I was out doing a little touring at that point in time, and kept seeing this and that, and Jaeger. What does that say? Well, we went and saw Slayer and Overkill one night. And it was back in the day to where they just hung out in the parking lot after the shows, and somebody mentioned, like, y'all want a beer or anything? I was like, nah, I can take it down. And Kerry King, bless his heart, went back and he said, hang on a minute. I got something you can try. And I guess they had just started his endorsement with him or whatever. So he traipses off to their tour bus and comes out with a fresh, chilled bottle of Jägermeister, which I didn't know what it was. But literally, Kerry King popped the seal and handed me the bottle and, here, try this, and giggled, okay? Which, as I say, should have been a red flag. It should have been. He's giggling. This is, I rode home in the back of a hatchback. I don't really remember most of it. So that was an interesting time. But I found out everybody hated the taste. And then everybody started drinking Red Bull, and everybody hated the taste. And I kept seeing these Jaeger bomb. What is this? And coming to find out it's Jägermeister and Red Bull. And you take a drink of it, and it's like, so the Red Bull cancels out the Jägermeister cancels out the Red Bull, and this tastes like candy. What could go wrong? Yeah. So I don't drink many of those anymore. I found out what could go wrong. Yeah. I explored that. Was like, oh, okay. So now I know. So don't do much of that at all anymore.
Definitely for the best. So, very good choice. Yeah.
Yes.
And for the last fun questions, here's how I'll word it. So if you guys have a favorite song of all time, feel free to share. Otherwise, list your top 3 bands you would consider your favorites of all time.
Of all time? Oof. Jeez, dude. Obviously, Kiss, that's where it started. I mean, because there would be no guitar playing without Metallica, obviously. But then when you get up to the black metal world, I mean, God, Rotting Christ was where I started, really. And then, I don't know, a dude from Louisville named Diop Scupa
Ooh.
When I started listening to them, man, probably that's one of my 5 records I would take on a desert island. Diop Scuffle. I'm gonna say Diop Scuffle because if I hadn't heard that, that's probably my favorite. Yeah, very underrated dude. He sings in Burial Oath now. People probably know them more, but his first band Diop Scuffle, he's still putting music out. But they're fantastic.
You got a favorite song?
I don't know. Shit, man.
I'm trying to. If you can, trying to take all the time I can to ponder.
I have no idea on a favorite song, man. I listen to so much stuff. There's a doom band from Richmond called Pond Digger, Richmond, Kentucky. They got a song called Mephistopheles' Children.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a doom. I mean, it's doom, but man, I gotta be honest with you. Right now, it's the most hookiest song I've heard in forever, and they're playing way above their weight class. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
They're playing these small venues and stuff, but when you hear them, you'll say, "Man, these dudes have been playing forever," because they write really good songs.
Yes, they do. Bands for me is widespread. Deep Purple. Got into it way early, and between John Lord and Ian Pace and all of the various singers, yeah, they hooked me up. I had a cousin that was into everything. That when I was a kid, he would filter me albums and this and that and so forth and so on. So Deep Purple jumped out at me. Leonard Skinner, the old original Leonard Skinner, okay, hit me at an age when I was really starting to explore a lot of different music with drums and everything. And yeah, I latched onto that, some of the early stuff, and was hooked forever and will never get away from it. As far as the metal world goes, good God, there's not much I don't care for. My top bands would have to be anything that Gene Hoglan has been involved with on drums. Death, Testament, Devastation, I think, or Destruction, even maybe for a minute. Strapping Young Lad. I've got to see. I had no idea who these people were, and I walk in and I see Gene Hoglan, which had seen Gene Hoglan time and time again with various bands. Once again, like in the old days, they used to come out and hang out in the parking lot, and he actually looked up like, "Hey, man, saw somebody from Cincinnati, didn't he?" And they were opening for Testament that night in a tiny little place that we used to play all the time. And yeah, Strapping Young Lad with Gene Hoglan just devastated that place. But anything that Gene Hoglan was a part of is in my top. I will say of a more modern era, Rammstein. The absolute screw the rules. This is what we're going to do. We don't care what anybody else does. Speaking of the COVID period, I had a ticket to Soldier Field in Chicago for Rammstein in my possession for 2 years because it kept getting postponed. And the thing is, the original ticket I bought was for Washington, D.C., which when they started on the reschedule things, that fell apart. So they let us choose whichever show we wanted to make up for our ticket for the other one. So I choose to stand on Soldier Field. How could you not? So yeah, those guys, more recent times, I don't know who's touching them right now. I don't know who's touching what they're doing right now. I don't think anybody really is.
Not too many, but hey, they're still kicking ass too. So,
oh yes.
But you also forgot for Gene Hoglan. You got Dark Angel.
There you go. Yes. Oh. That was, oh man, just everything about that. There was one period there to where we saw him with Death playing with Devastation. So Death opened up for Devastation, and just weeks later, he came back to the same place. I think Devastation was opening for Overkill, and Gene had moved from Death to Devastation for a few weeks. So, I was spoiled ridiculous. I can still remember sitting there watching him play and listening to what was coming out, because he just would lean his head back and look like he was just taking a nap. But the ambidextrous speed, everything he was doing, was like, what in the world is happening? And he's one of the first extreme drummers that I remember that stepped beyond just the speed. But the fact that his speed was a little quicker than just about everybody else's wasn't, lost on anyone. But he was crafty at what he did. Gene Hoglan, I don't know. To me, he's a drummer that no matter what style you play, that's the mentality you should try to go through things with.
That's for sure. So, we got a little shout out from the mascot who showed up.
Oh yes.
Yeah, that's the ruler of the house.
Should you read the poops?
I've not said hello in a couple of hours. She's feeling good. It's little Monty. She's not happy right now.
All right. But we have reached all the questions here. Pretty good. We're down to one more, so we won't take up at least too much of your time, so she won't be too angry. But before we jump into it, would you guys like to ask me anything or say any final words?
No, it's been a good interview. Pretty easy. Appreciate you making it easy for us.
Thank you.
Considering we didn't know what we were doing to begin with.
Yeah, a little technical difficulties at the beginning there too, so not sure what that was all about. But
the band just got to get used to it. It rains every time we play together.
Apparently. So, all right. But if there's nothing else, here's how the last question would go. So, given the amount of negativity that you have seen in the world, you guys firsthand have seen the results of the pharmaceuticals, what it does to communities, maybe a little bit of the coal industry. I don't know if it's done anything. I know you talked about the black lung earlier.
Okay.
I know, Dan. But for the amount of negativity that's been going on in the world, I think people need some sort of hope these days. So what would be your message of hope so people can move on with their lives?
Just be nice, man. That's all you got to do. Be nice. Everybody sees something and like, that's retarded or stupid or foolish or whatever word you want to use. Just don't say it. You don't have to comment it. We all see a post we want to say something negative about, but just don't say it. It doesn't help anybody. It doesn't bring anything to it. And more than likely, you probably would get along with that person if you knew them anyway. There's just, there are so many other things, where there's people like where I live that, there's bigger things to worry about. People are not eating right now. People are homeless. That's what we need. Everybody needs to work together to make sure everybody's taken care of. Because there's a lot of people out that don't have anything. And, when you see them on cold nights sitting beside the road, when I go to the city to work and I see homeless people, it messes with me. So when I come back home and I see homeless people, it really messes with me. So, just be nice and try to help each other out.
Yeah. There's find out what you can do or what you can say to someone that's not negative. If you have a negative point, try to find how to either reconcile that negative point with yourself or figure out how to deliver something to somebody without knocking them down, without tearing them down. As he mentions, most comments, far too many comments or opinions or whatever you want to call it, are hateful, mean-spirited, derogatory. Sometimes they're even right or correct. But once again, what good does it do being correct if you're a hateful bastard while doing so? It's going to take away any goodness that you're trying to convey. Because it is. I'm blessed out in central western Kentucky. Some of the issues aren't as obvious. Okay. Until the news talks about it. You can go through some of the Appalachian areas, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, and you can tell the places that, because I live 20 minutes south of the capital of Kentucky. Okay, our roads are pretty good taken care of, our infrastructure is pretty good taken care of. The further you go out from that area, the worse it looks like they're doing their job. You can tell the places that aren't getting the funding. You can tell a lot of things. So with all of this going on, if all you can do is find what is wrong, that's all you're going to have, you know? So, you know, if I was giving somebody advice, take everything into consideration and figure out what you're going to add to it. What's needed? What do you think? Et cetera, et cetera. Find out how you can add something good. And if you can't, wait until you can. You will have a chance. Every one of us will have a chance to do something positive somewhere along the way, if you let yourself do it. And I have had to learn, because I can be a mouthy little snot back in the day. If something got into my crawl or something didn't, you know, somebody didn't have the right look on their face or whatever, I took it personally. Well, and I got what that brings. I got to be a miserable sot for about 3 years. And then I met my wife, and yeah, found out, okay, you don't have to be an asshole all the time, do you? And she ain't gonna let you. So yeah, you know, I've had a lot of people come into my life at a very pivotal point, and they uplifted me with their actions and their words. And if I can, you know, it's kind of my responsibility in a way. I feel that whenever I can, I should do that. That's what I should be trying to do. So yeah. And this guy right here, we've talked vaguely about things like this and this, you know, and as we're filling each other out, and it's like, it's great to know that this is a caring guy that cares about people, you know, in a spooky old hell-raising band, which isn't nearly as easy as to find as I generally thought it was for a long time. It's getting more and more difficult to find people who aren't just, you know, the songs are negative, this is negative, everything is negative, don't you just hate the world? And it's like, no, not particularly, you know. So yeah, I get lost on that stuff quickly.
Just wanted to make sure. I said I was going to cut in earlier. I thought you were done actually with your speech 30 seconds ago, so I was about to say. So, but nonetheless, spoke like a bunch of true prodigies. So, all right. All right. So, Dan, Chuck, we've reached the end of my podcast right here. We talked a little over an hour and 40 some minutes, but before we close out, you want to give any shout outs to anybody or say any final words?
This weekend we're playing at Lowell. We're playing with Reverse Osmosis and Pinhead Poison. A couple of local bands. They're young and man, they're pretty raw. So check them out on the Instagram and Facebook. We're playing at the Lowell City Hall, so be there.
And just hey everybody, hi mom, hi family, etc. And yeah, just as he said, you know, we're going to be out here and there. Keep an eye out for us, and hopefully we'll see some of your smiling faces out there soon.
Hopefully. But just real quick, what's social media and streaming platforms you guys on so I can check out your music, and I guess anything else you want to add? I guess any other shows or material?
Instagram, it's hollows .606. Hollows on Facebook. Hollows on Bandcamp. Usually on Bandcamp, we're like the 4th or 5th Hollows. You'll see us. And I think that's all I got out there.
And for me, I have Chuck Johnson Noise on Instagram and Facebook, which you may see pictures of, you know, cicadas, flowers, or concert footage, or footage of one of the local bands around. I love to take footage of the local bands and post it around here whenever I get a chance, whoever they may be, you know. So something like that will show up on my stuff occasionally. But otherwise, I'm just trying to share everybody's music and et cetera, et cetera. Every now and then, some of ours.
That's good. Give it the good work there, Chuck. So, all right. But to close out like this, everyone, my guests today were Dan and Chuck. They're part of the band Hollows, hailing from the sticks of Kentucky right there, too. So, make sure you go hit up all streaming platforms. Go on Bandcamp. they're not all streaming platforms, so just everyone on Bandcamp right there too. So let's go help our brothers out as well as everyone else down there too. So, and just real quick, were you guys impacted by the recent tornadoes that came through?
All around me.
And here we get all the floods here.
Yeah. But the tornadoes have been all around me. I have been up close and personal with them. Back in '74, that super outbreak, our school was destroyed, which I was in about 30 minutes before it hit. Killed our custodian and his wife and trapped a bunch of people in the gymnasium and stuff for hours. But since then, I've been up close and personal with a couple or more. But this particular season so far has been more active than any time I can remember. And they come right up to us here recently and have turned at the last minute. So, yeah, I've had the tornado warning system going off at least 11 or 12 times so far this season, which is a lot. Usually we might have that many through the whole year.
Down where the Yarn boys are from, they had it pretty bad.
Yeah. Our pals down in London and Somerset area there's a fantastic old band here in Kentucky, the Vibrolas. They were spared from much damage, but their area and community were impacted heavily. And right next, not too far from the Holler of Doom site, London, Kentucky took a vicious hit. I mean, we're talking about literally a tornado that was nearly a mile wide at that point in time. And the fact that not many more people were killed than there were is just stunning at this point. So, close near misses for me, but it's definitely been an interesting time so far this season.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you had like the American Red Cross or somebody trying to help out. I guess, is there any sort of charities trying to help out with people who have been impacted?
There's a lot of GoFundMe's in this area.
Yeah.
I mean, you just have to go on Facebook places. Look, there's so many I couldn't even tell you who to where to even go.
A bunch of benefits already from bands in all directions. I mean, before this period, not too far from where we're at right now, Eastern Kentucky had devastating floods. So we've gone from that to the tornado impact, and this week coming in my area, we're looking at close to 4, 5, 6 days of heavy rain again. So yeah, just wait and see how that's going to turn out this time.
All right. But nonetheless, do stay safe out there. And if anyone wants to help out for people who have been impacted by floods or tornadoes for that matter, make sure you go hit up on any parts of the socials or I guess wherever out on what any sort of websites or anything there too. So, but boys, thank you again so much again for coming on here. So y'all do stay safe because it is one pretty fucked up world out there. Rock on.
Yes, sir.
And just real quick, a quick pose.
Thank you for having us.
Stay tuned, y'all. Wait, I did a quick pose. Hold it.